Hi, I'm Joanne Yo. I'm delighted to be sharing a presentation on the art of asking, how better questions deepen animal communication. This is something I'm known for in my teaching, and it's close to my heart. The way we ask questions can transform our connection with animals, not just in sessions, but in everyday life, whether it's health, behavior, or simply tuning in to their perspective. The right question opens the door to real dialogue and deeper understanding. So let's dive right in. The art of asking, how better questions deepen animal communication. Have you ever asked your animal a question and felt like you hit a wall or received an answer that left you wondering if you really got it? I remember in the early years of my practice, I used to think, why is it there are times when I can have a communication with an animal and everything flows, and then other times it's like I haven't received anything, particularly when I'm speaking with my own pets. I think this is why so many of us seem to hold this belief that communicating with our own pets is difficult, because often we think, I've asked them a question. I've asked them, are they okay? Are you feeling all right? Is there anything you want? And I don't get much back. So it's quite a curious situation I found myself, because there were many times in my professional consultations where I could get lots of information from the animal without trying. And then there were other animals that it seemed as if they were avoiding the questions, they were quiet. I even got to a stage where I started to think maybe the animal didn't want to talk to me. But I'm here to say to you that animals really want to communicate. And I've found that it wasn't about the fact that they didn't want to answer our questions, but what I'm about to share with you hopefully will give you many more insights to how you can encourage that dialogue with the animal if you do hit a wall. So questions deserve more attention in animal communication. But why is that? Let's bring our awareness to the way that we are approaching animals to begin with. What kind of energy am I bringing when I ask something of my animal companion? Is your energy high or low? Or does your energy carry a sense of doubt? Or are you holding lots of expectations? Do we expect the answer to come in immediately? Do you give space for the answer? Or do you feel that whenever there's a pause when you've asked a question and you're thinking, I'm not receiving anything, do you then try to rush in and maybe ask lots and lots of other questions, or immediately think, this is not going the way that I want it to go? Have you considered how does the animal feel when I ask from anxiety or when I ask from openness? Can you relate to this? Are you conscious about the anxiety that you may be carrying? And the anxiety can be perfectly understandable. For example, you might be so wanting to have the answer from the animal because it's about a topic that you are very concerned about. You may be approaching the communication with thinking, really hope that the answer will come. I really hope that the dog will tell me why he's no longer eating. How about the times when you approach an animal without expectation, where you are feeling very open and relaxed, and actually it doesn't matter to you whether the animal gives you the answer or not. You happen to be in that place where You're genuinely coming from a place of curiosity. You see, these questions that we ask ourselves can completely shift the tone of the dialogue before we even begin. Because if you're not aware of how you're approaching the animal, how you are approaching the questions that you want to ask, that can then not give you the clarity of the response that you're getting. Let's look at what gets in the way. You see, sometimes we don't even realize what energy is wrapped around our question. For me, from my experience, I remember thinking to myself, I seem to be rushing this conversation. Now, why would we do that? Perhaps because there's so many questions. I often have pet guardians who are anxious about their animal and they want to know so much. So I can get 10, 15 questions. And so I'm thinking, I need to get through all of them. So I'm rushing this conversation. I've also sometimes found that I could be second guessing what I'm receiving. And what do I mean by second guessing? It can be that I receive some aspects of the information, but it's not very clear. The animal might send me a shape, or I would be seeing it where it's fleeting and it's not coming in a clear visual that I can identify. So I find myself almost grappling for an understanding. I feel like I'm making it up sometimes. I also found myself checking, am I trying to fix a problem rather than understand the story? Now, there is a very important definition where you're trying to fix the problem to wanting to understand the story. The definition of fixing the problem is you are coming in, asking the animal a question, wanting to resolve it without really, really connecting in with how the animal thinks or feel. And we know with animal communication, that's our priority because we want to understand. And why is it important to understand? It's because how they're experiencing what we observe can be completely the opposite of what we imagine is going on for them. In order to help our animals to feel that they're being heard and that we are there to listen with love, it's really important that we seek to understand as opposed to fixing. Now, if you find yourself wanting to fix a problem, if you find yourself that you're rushing the conversation, if you find yourself that you feel as if you're second guessing, these are not mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. I remember being so critical of myself in my early days. Because I'm sharing these highlights with you about how we have these habits without even realizing it, they become moments of learning. And so when we notice them, our animals notice them too. It's perfectly fine to say to the animal in that moment, oh, I realized I've been rushing. I've been rushing this conversation. I feel as if I really want to get through all the questions that your person is anxious about. Let's take a breath. Or you can go, I feel like I'm second guessing what you're sharing with me. And so you can say to the animal, can you just help me out here? Can you give me a clearer visual? Can you send me an accompanying emotion? And catch yourself too if you say to the animal, so want to know why you're creating this harmony in the home. I want to be able to be the person that can help fix this and restore harmony. Then catch yourself and say to the animal, oops, I'm trying to fix the problem without actually taking the time and trusting that if I can help you to share with me in a way that gives me information for me to understand how you're feeling, how you're experiencing the situation. Then will we be able to work together as a team with you and your person to restore harmony. For me, my breakthrough, asking better questions changed everything for me, particularly when I felt that I wasn't getting the information or that the animal seems to start talking about other things aside from what I really want them to focus on. But other than asking better questions, I realized that it wasn't just about the question itself, because the real shift came when I changed how I was listening, when I trusted the energy behind the question and stayed present. The animals responded with such wisdom, clarity, and heart. Let me tell you a story of a cat who suddenly stopped using the litter tray. This was with a client who had 3 cats, and one of them, who had always used the litter tray, suddenly decided, I'm going to start peeing in different parts of the house. The client, the pet guardian, did everything she could. She brought in more litter trays, she changed the litter, she even moved the position of the litter trays when she saw that her cat was peeing by a doorway. So she thought maybe that's where her cat wanted to pee. She would put the litter tray there. But nothing seemed to work. When she contacted me, it would have been, if I was thinking I wanted to fix the problem, then I would be going, why? Why are you not using the litter tray? Don't you know that this is unacceptable? There's 3 of you, there's 5 litter trays. What's wrong? Why aren't you doing as you should be doing? Don't you want to have a clean house? And that can be a trap, because I'm trying to convince the cat that she should use the litter tray, when really, when we think about animal communication, it's about listening to the animal, to really understand them, to understand that their behavior isn't because they want to create disharmony, but there's a real reason behind it. And this was a very touching story, because when I actually sat with the cat, took my time, I didn't rush, and I didn't ask lots of questions beginning with why. And I just said to the cat, tell me what is going on. Tell me what else is happening for you. How are you feeling within yourself? I even took away the focus about the litter tray and said, if I put aside the topic about the litter tray, what is going on for you? And then the cat opened up and shared with me that recently there was a loss of a cat companion. The guardian used to have 4 cats, and this cat had passed away. And the cat that passed away had a very strong relationship with the cat that was not using the litter tray. The more I listened to this cat, and I said to her, is this your way of expressing that you're having difficulty in coming to terms with the loss of your companion? And that was when she really relaxed, and I could sense that all this weight just dropped off her shoulders. Now, at that stage, I didn't know whether the grief that the cat was sharing with me was related to the litter tray, but it felt so important that this cat had the opportunity to open up about this situation. So I helped my client to look at different ways to support her cat. Now, a week later, good news. The client actually said to me, messaged me and said, the cat is no longer peeing outside of the litter tray, because the cat was feeling so much more relaxed. She knew that her person understood her, and her not using the litter tray was a sign of saying, I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling well, and I don't know how else to be. I'm having behaviors that are indicating that something isn't right with me. Because I didn't focus my questions on the litter tray itself and asking questions why, or going into lengthy explanations about why using a litter tray is important, but really took the time and space to go, let that cat share whatever is going on with her. I hope that story also can be a story that you can relate to. So, question becomes the bridge. This is what I've discovered along the way. The motive matters. Are you approaching the question because you're trying to correct the situation, or are you wanting to connect? The difference between the connection and the correction is that connection is all about understanding. I care about you. I'm not going to fixate on the behavioral issue or the health issue, but I'm here to connect with how are you experiencing the situation? How are you feeling within your body? So correction is something that closes down our communication channels, but connection is a way of saying, here, let me enter your world. The language holds energy too. A small shift in wording can invite a completely different response. Think about if you were to start a question with why. Why do you do that? Why are you barking? Why are you disappearing off when I call you to come back to me? The way that we ask the question, the language and the energy behind the word why, to me, creates pressure. And we got to think, does the animal know the reason? They are acting intuitively and instinctively. They're coming from a place of, this is not right for me, or this is what I'm uncomfortable with. But they won't specifically know why they're uncomfortable. It's important for us to be able to connect with the energy with how we're using our words and our language, because animals do not speak the human language. They connect in with the visual, the sound, the smell, the taste, the emotion, the sensation that our words hold. Now, presence after the question is everything. Earlier I spoke about how I can sometimes end up rushing in a conversation because I think I've got to get through all these questions. And so just take your time. Remember to pause, ask a question, and give the animal the time for them to send their answers to you. Sometimes information can be quite complex that you're discussing with the animal. And so imagine if they had to send you a visual, a sound, an emotion, a sensation, all wrapped up so that it brings us clarity and that we are able to connect with the information. It takes time. So allow the animal to respond in their own way. Did you know that sometimes I can ask my animal a question and it may be the next day before I receive the answer? With our own animals, that's possible. We have the time. We can say to them, I've just asked you a question that could be a very sensitive topic. So don't feel that you have to answer straight away. I'll leave my communication channels open. And as and when you want to connect with me with how you feel about what I've asked, then please do so. There have been many occasions where the information doesn't come straight away. And I've learned now not to assume that if I don't get it straight away, that there's no answer or that the animal doesn't want to talk to me. Sometimes even give it a day. So let's look at examples of questions. I've been talking about how certain questions can maybe close down a communication channels, and certain ways of phrasing a question can open up the communication channels. Let's see what you think about this. Tune into how it comes across. If somebody says to you, why are you doing this? As opposed to, what would you like me to understand about this? Which one are you more likely to open up to the person? who asks the question, what would you like me to understand about this? As opposed to somebody standing there saying to you, why are you doing this? Can you see already the power behind how we ask questions? So let's look at some examples on how we can shift the question to create subtle changes and give us deeper conversations. If you're feeling that you have to fix something, you're more likely to ask the question, why are you doing this? But I'd like to suggest to you that you shift into feeling so that you can say to the animal, what would you like me to understand about what's happening? What about when you come from a place of judgment, where you might be feeling frustrated about a situation or a behavior? What about if you move into emotional insight? So if you're coming from a place of judgment, you tend to say or ask the animal, are you just being stubborn? But if you're coming from a place of seeking insight, your question will be, is something about this situation feeling hard for you? Often we ask questions without realizing that the only answer the animal can give us is yes, no. What about if we shift the question that allows the animal to be invited to tell us more? So you bought your cat a new bed and you go, do you like your new bed? And you might get a yes, you might get a no, but it doesn't leave us satisfied. We want to know more. In order to ask your animal to share more, you can ask this question: how and what does your new bed feel like to you? Already, there's so much in that question that is so inviting to the animal to share how the bed feels on a sensation or an emotion, or just the way that they can stretch out on the bed, or the way that they like to curl on the bed, or what the smell of that bed is like. Do they like it so that they can hide in that bed? So they can tell us so much more than just a yes or no. We can sometimes become so clinical, particularly with health issues. And then we become worried, particularly with these type of questions. Are you in pain? And often the energy behind the way we ask, are you in pain, is loaded with anxiety, is loaded with our worry. And that energy can be very oppressing to the animal. So shift it where you create a conversation. Ask them, how does your body feel today? Already you're giving the animal the opportunity to connect in with their sensation, how they feel when they're walking, how they feel when they're moving from a lying to a standing position, so that they can describe it in more detail than just saying, yes, I'm in pain, no, I'm not in pain. It could be that it's their leg, but not their back that they are uncomfortable with. So they can say, when you say, how does your body feel today? They can say, my shoulders are strong, but my hind legs, they're really struggling. This is where we become urgent because we are so worried that our animals could be suffering, particularly when it's end of life. So we become obsessed almost in trying to get a straight answer from the animal, a clear answer. We say things like, is it time to let you go? Whereas if we shift that into a place of trust, so that the animal knows that they can share with us however that they're feeling, but from a deeper insight, without having to have this pressure of making a decision. Perhaps they're not in a place where they can make a decision. We can offer them this question: how would you like us, what would you like us to know as we walk this part of the journey with you. Can you feel the difference between the energy of these two questions? So, which of these feels most relevant to your conversations right now? Remember, there's no mistakes, it's all about learning. Do you find that you tend to ask lots of why questions? If you do, then hopefully what I've given you are some examples to shift the energy, the angle, to open up the communication channels. And these are gentle guiding reminders. I am not here to say to you, these are exactly what you must do, that these are the steps you must follow. The way that I teach is offering you suggestions and guidance and for you to go and try them out. If you are finding that the animal is only answering yes or no, hopefully I've given you an example in the questions that we've just been through, how to open up to ask the animals to share much more with you. Now, we can then look at how questions can become conversations, because that's what we long for at the end of the day, isn't it? We want to have a conversation with our animals. We don't just want to be that like an interviewer, ask that question, get an answer, ask a question. We would love to have a great conversation like we do with our best friend, or somebody that we are so excited about the dialogue that we're having. The goal isn't to become an expert at asking. It's actually to become someone the animal wants to have a conversation with. Think about how somebody that you know in your life, where you feel as if they just ask you lots of questions without taking the time to, in many ways, sometimes reflect back to you what they're hearing, that their listening skills are really not so good. And so you feel as if you are being bombarded with questions. Nobody wants to have a conversation with somebody who bombards them with questions. Think about how you can help someone to feel heard, to feel listened, and what a beautiful, sacred space you can create for them to just relax and for them to share with you what's on their mind and in their hearts. When we ask with presence and care, communication becomes a shared space, not a transaction. So remember, it's not an interview. And one aligned question can shift the entire relationship. Make sure you and the animal are on the same page. If you're holding judgment, you're not on the same page as the animal. If you're seeking to fix a problem, you're not on the same page as the animals. Animals do not look to resolve issues or fix problems, but what they do love is to share how they feel. So make sure that your question is aligned so that they feel that you are really entering their world, that you can help them to express how they are feeling. That to me is the true magic of animal communication. We love animal communication because it's all about being able to enter the world of our animals and feel the way that they're feeling, learn from their wisdom, and be able to have and share this deep bond with them. So, if you take one thing from today, let it be this: that asking a question isn't just about seeking an answer. It's about creating space for connection, understanding, and sometimes even healing. When we ask with presence, with care, and with genuine curiosity, we're not just opening communication, we are deepening a relationship. Thank you for listening, and thank you for believing in this work.